Hello, my name is Mike. I'm a researcher here at Ipsos. Welcome to our latest report, Generation Z. Do they exist and what influences them? We build on Ipsos' heritage of myth-busting around generations, examining high-quality and long-term research to understand a bit more about the UK's newest generation, who've only just started appearing in the data in large enough numbers to study. We'll look at questions such as, how strong is their identity? In which areas do they hold different values? And where do we see differences and similarities between Gen Z and older generations when they were a similar age? But first, I wanted to review the state of the art when it comes to generational analysis. There's a very simple and ancient idea at the heart of any generational thinking, that the circumstances we grew up in have shaped the values and attitudes of the cohort of people we're part of. It's not to say that we'll all have the same views, but our opinions will emerge against a similar backdrop to others of a similar age. But it's fair to say this idea has been adulterated somewhat in recent years. We can all think of misleading headlines about Generation Z. Examples from just the past few months include Gen Z being the Grinch generation, cancelling Christmas and claiming to be traumatized by lies about Santa Claus. Gen Z are the workers who want it all, demanding 5 p.m. finishes and being bizarre and informal in their email etiquette. And Gen Z are even abandoning biscuits for samosas and dipping them in tea. Having read under the headlines, there's sometimes a grain of truth somewhere in the story, but for many people, generations are simply exaggerated stereotypes on which society projects its concerns about the future. And we only need to look back a few years ago to see how this works. Back in the middle of the last decade, it was the millennial generation who were the new kids on the block. They were subject to the same types of headlines. Millennials were killing a wide variety of institutions, from the EU to the McDonald's McWrap. They were giving their children strange names and didn't know how to have friends. And in a particularly clear echo of what we're hearing today, they were much more likely to be late to work, and their sensitivity was infuriating their more senior colleagues. So what substance is there underneath the froth? When we think about how change happens in generational analysis, it's useful to think about 3 different effects. The first is a life cycle effect, where people's attitudes change as they age. For instance, leaving home, starting a job, having a child, or retiring are all significant milestones that impact people in specific life stages. Secondly, we have a period effect, where attitudes of people of all ages change in a similar way. For instance, the COVID-19 pandemic drove retail behaviours more online for people of all ages. And finally, we have cohort effects, where a generation has different views to those who came before, and these stick with them as they age and progress through life stages. Many of these headlines are driven by people mistaking a period or life cycle effect for a generational one. When we read about Gen Z's habits at work, are these really something new about this generation? Or is it simply a reflection of the fact that they're young? I wanted to share a worked example of how this works. In this example, we hear that Gen Z and millennials aren't as into drinking coffee as older people. And the figures seem to bear it out. Half of baby boomers report drinking coffee every day, compared with just under 4 in 10 of Gen X, a quarter of millennials, and just 1 in 10 of Generation Z. But thinking about each of the different effects can help us ask some questions that dig deeper into the topic. With a single data point, we're unable to tell if there's a period effect. But perhaps if we asked the question early in the morning, we might have got a different response to asking it at lunchtime or later in the evening. Life cycle effects are definitely worth thinking about. At what age do people typically start drinking coffee? If it's mid-20s or after having a child, we'd expect lower levels amongst younger generations. And as coffee drinking is habit forming, how much coffee did the baby boomer generation drink when they were in their 20s? Only then can we think about cohort effects. Are there emerging attitudes towards dairy or sugar or hot drinks overall amongst Generation Z that might be impacting coffee? Our new report cuts through the myths and misconceptions around Generation Z. We do this through analysing long-term and high-quality data sources that let us look back at previous generations when they were younger. By doing this, we can untangle life cycle and period effects from the cohort effects which define the values of different generations. We examine Generation Z across a number of areas: politics, finance, and values such as environmentalism, in search of their unique characteristics. We find that Generation Z does exist and has its own distinct values in some, but not all of these areas. And there are many areas where we don't have the data or questions to confirm or deny some of the statements that are made. Our approach supports the idea that generational analysis and thinking is a useful way to approach how change happens.